You're listening to the Millennovator podcast, where we host the most innovative millennial entrepreneurs, and you learn the secret tips, proven tricks, and profitable tools they have picked up from entrepreneurial infancy to straight up business empire, and every stage in between. And now, your hosts and money Millennovators, Jonathan and Will.
Give me the right now, go right now. I'm trying to sit it now, go right now. You trying to get it now, go right now.
Millennovators, we're happy to have you on the show today. This is your boy Jonathan, and to my right, my boy Willie D.
This episode is gonna freaking rock, by the way.
We're so excited. I don't know if any of you have seen hats with 3 letters on them, but we have our boy Ben Lancaster today on the show from Aviate, and we're just super excited about sharing his story.
Aviate, if you don't know, are here locally in Birmingham, Alabama, but they're across the nation, even in the Bahamas. I think he told us they're in over like 300 retail stores now. But what's interesting is these hats have 3 letters, like Jonathan just mentioned, right? So Birmingham's airport code is BHM. Nashville's airport code is BNA. Charlotte's airport code is CLT. LaGuardia, right? So what all Ben has done is come up with an idea of putting the airport codes for specific cities on hats. And he's got those hats in those specific cities in different trendy retailers and boutique shops throughout the city. And people are buying them
All over the place.
like it's crazy. And I see them everywhere. And not only that, but they're starting to get some traction on Instagram from some really cool social media influencers. One in which has 7 million followers, no big deal.
No big deal.
Like, I mean, I would love for somebody to rock a Millennovator hat if they had 7 million followers. How freaking cool is that?
That would be legit.
But Jonathan, it's pretty neat because Ben's story started out on a you and me level, right?
Ben was really just trying to figure out how he wanted to do this. He had an idea, and we'll get more into that into the interview with him, but he really had an idea, and like most of the stories that we have with the people we interview on our podcast, he just had to take a leap of faith. And to be honest, it was a pretty big leap. When he started, he was wanting to sell hats. He wanted to buy, 100 hats?
I think he bought 100 as a sample. That was like the minimum he could do.
He bought these hats at $25 a piece.
Like 23, 25, yeah.
That's a lot. I mean, I think
That's like almost $3,000 in a sample product, right?
Oh, yeah.
And he's still working a full-time job at the time, and
Oh, yeah.
he can go into that, but that's a decent chunk of change. You know, a lot of people listening to the show, you may be thinking, man, whoa. I just am talking about spending $300.
Yeah, he just went out there and spent $3,000. And like I said, most of the stories that you hear on our podcast are people taking a leap of faith. It doesn't always have to be $3,000. Sometimes it can be $30,000. Sometimes it can be $300. But they're always having to take that leap and say, okay, I'm going to try this out. I'm going to do this.
So tune into this interview here with Ben and see where your leap of faith lies. Because I promise you it's out there. And hopefully you can find it after this episode and make that jump into entrepreneurship full time. Because remember, Jonathan, when Ben started this idea, he was still working for his dad's paper company. He was commuting like 2 hours or over 2 hours every single day just to get to and from work back home to see his family.
And then working.
And then working when he got home boxing up hats.
That's crazy.
And that took quite some time until he realized, this is working, I'm quitting my job, and I'm turning this side hustle into a full-time hustle.
Well, you know what I appreciate about what we heard from Ben, and I want to point this out before you hear the interview, is once you get to that point where you create a full-time hustle and that's where you take the leap of faith, one thing Ben did great was he surrounded himself by a great team. He continually added pieces to his team to create Aviate what it is today, and I think you'll hear some parts of that from Ben and how he picked and chose people and how they grew as a team together.
Well, let's dive into it.
That's good.
Guys, the interview is going to start right now. Check it out. And also, don't forget to leave us a review about the show. I'm super fired up about this one, and I know you will be too.
Check it out one time, I got a show to do. And if you love hip-hop, I'm about to perform for you.
What's up, guys? It's Will sitting here with Jonathan, and I have got the founder of Aviate, Ben Lancaster, on the line with us today. Y'all are in for a treat. Ben, what's happening, man? Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Everything's good on my end.
Man, so you were just telling us you've got, well, number one, we'll get into the story in a little while, but you're in a new office space, fairly new for you, and you've got a brand new couch. So
Yeah.
Jonathan mentioned you've stepped up in the world, man.
That's right. Yeah, I just moved houses. I needed to find find a place to put these couches. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take them and put them in my office. So that's what I did.
Well, man, I love it. I've been to your office, and it embodies the brand pretty darn well. And while we're on the topic of the brand, can you kind of tell our listeners out there who Aviate is, what you guys are all about before we get started?
Aviate, we're an apparel company that kind of prides ourselves in making hats with the 3-letter airport code on the front. And that's where the whole idea got started off, based here in Birmingham, Alabama. We just trying to see where the road's going to take us. Hats are kind of our niche, and we're just trying to figure out what we're going to do next.
Awesome, man. Well, what's really going to be beneficial for us to hear, like, how did you get, Aviate, I guess a little bit more about what you guys do, how you do it, and I guess the story of what you were doing before you started the company and then how you got into it.
Before I started the company, I worked for a company in Gadsden that works in community newspapers. So I was basically in the newspaper business for 8 years, and drove back and forth from Birmingham to Gadsden for 8 years, which is about a 2-hour round trip drive. I wasn't 100% satisfied with that job. I knew there was something more. I was hungry, all that kind of thing. I always wanted to have my own, whether it's brand, product, whatever. I always wanted to have my own thing that I was a part of creating.
Yeah.
There was a couple times where in those 8 years of working up in Gadsden, there was a couple times where I tried to launch some things, and they either never got off the ground or they got off the ground and just fell quick and miserably.
I know how that feels.
Yeah,
you're not the only one.
These couple ideas I had, I just never could get anybody on board or support and all that kind of thing. Turns out that's a good thing. Learned from a mistake and all that kind of thing. So, but fast forward, had the idea of, it was just a simple idea of putting these airport codes on hats. And originally what we did is this was before Aviate was even a company. We had wool hats. We put BHM on them in a couple other cities, got them made, and literally just sold them out of the back of a car, and friends of friends and all that. And we sold, I think it was maybe 100 of them, I believe was the number, and literally like a day and a half, 2 days, and we sold them for $65 a hat. Yeah.
Oh man.
Wow. Are you serious? Okay. So let me rewind on that, because I was just thinking in my head, if you got 100, and this was kind of a sample, right? You were just kind of testing out the idea, the audience for it. You spent some decent cash to get those made, right? Like that was a bit of a leap for you at the time, probably.
I can't remember the number on it, but yeah, it was decent because it was made domestically. You get not making stuff domestically, but your costs quadruple when you do that. So yes, the investment was pretty hefty at that point in time, just to get those, handful of wool hats made. But, it worked out. At that point, that was about February of 2015. End of March of 15 is when we actually made Aviate LLC, and decided to really kind of throw everything at it and just see what we could do with it. Just to give you the rundown is in the story, we launched the company. I had a connection in Tuscaloosa. A friend of mine owns a company in Tuscaloosa that does manufacturing. He introduced me to all the factories overseas. So that was our hookup in making hats. So what we did is we targeted Birmingham, obviously, because that's where we're located, BHM, and we did 9 other cities. Primarily cities that we had connections in at the time. So Birmingham, my wife's from the Sarasota, Florida area. So Sarasota, Atlanta, Nashville, and then some more popular ones like LA and Phoenix and Chicago and New York. And so we made our first order, and at the time it was like a $10,000 order, and I was like, holy hell, how am I
we're doing this?
I was like, whatever, I don't really care. I had personal money. Had not looked into financing yet at the time. Got the order in, and then so June 1st of 2015 is when we first started actively selling product under the Aviate LLC. Within 2 or 3 weeks, we had sold through about 3/4 of the order, which was about 2,000 units, by the way, across 10 cities.
Wow.
And I was like, man, we are really on to something. Placed a reorder, and then placed another order, adding 10 more cities, making it 20 total. I had a partner up to that point, and right about that time we split, and I took control of the company. We were in about 3 retailers, 2 here in Birmingham and 1 in Nashville, which again, we were in those retailers because of just connections that we had. man, when we got that second order in, once I took over, which was in end of June ish of 2015, we went from, and obviously I was by myself. I didn't have my intern yet at the time, literally by myself. Just that summer alone went from the 3 retailers to probably 40 or 50 by the end of August. And just from talking to people in this kind of industry, they're like, man, it takes a year to get a dozen retailers for most people.
Dude, you put the team on your back. That's what I'm talking about.
Not normal. And so that made me feel really good. And so summer went by, and the whole cliche you hear about entrepreneurs and people that start their own business, man, I slept 2 hours last night and, I've been work around the clock. Well, I've literally worked around the clock and never slept. I was still, at that point, summer of 15, I was still driving to Gadsden during the day, working, coming home, eating dinner, and then going to this 400 square feet, I think it was, office space I had in Birmingham, which before that I was packing boxes on my screened-in back porch of my old house.
Nice.
But yeah.
Well played. See, that's what I support right there. I mean, that's just down-home entrepreneurship.
Yeah, it was certainly grassroots in the beginning. I tried to do my garage, but it was too dirty, so I did it on the back porch. And then, we moved to this 400 square feet. And then 2.5 months of that summer, driving up, 2 hours round trip work, coming back, boxing hats from, 7 p.m. till 11 or 12 or 1 every night, and then waking up and doing it all over again. And then finally August rolled around, and I woke up and, looked at everything, and I was like, damn, I'm actually making money right now. And so I had reached out I went to Samford University here in Birmingham, and I'd reached out to my old fraternity to see if, because I knew I needed help, unpaid help, of course, at the time, but I needed help, so I reached out to my old fraternity for an intern. I had one guy respond, Jordan Hovater.
Nice.
He's standing right there. Jordan Hovater.
He's made it. Mama, I made it.
And so he started helping me out. It was he and I, like, grinding it out, getting shipments out and all that kind of thing. And he started in August, and it was he and I all through fall, through our first holiday season. By end of 2015, we were in it was definitely over 100 retailers that we were in.
Man, that's crazy.
Christmas was just insane for us, and which was a good thing. And I expected sales to go down. Well, what they did is in January and February, because they're traditionally slow months no matter what industry you're in. Well, January was better than December, and February was better than January. And then I was like, holy crap, I need to hire somebody else, because Jordan and I can't keep up with all this, and he's in school and all that. So March of 16, I hired my first legit full-time employee. Actually hired her away from one of my stores here in Birmingham that she managed. And
nice. That's a great way. You're not the only one that's had that happen to strategy. That happens often.
It was kind of meant to be. She had reached out to me and asking if I knew anybody hiring, and I was like, let me think about it. About 3 weeks went by, and I was like, yeah, you know what? I need help, actually. Will work for me. Yeah. And it's kind of one of those things, how do you know when's the right time to hire your first employee as a business owner? And I obviously did not know the answer to that question either. But when that time comes, it literally hits you like a ton of bricks. Like, I can't handle all of this myself. I've got to have somebody. And I may not be, we may not be making tons of money right now, but I know I need help to enable us to start making more money. And so hired the first employee March of 16, and I had her do things from helping me and Jordan box hats. That way that would free me up to do more administrative type stuff, banking, finding financing, more financing. All.
Oh, that stuff is so much fun, isn't it, by the way?
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I still do that every single day. That's what I do. Managing your cash flow and your income and keeping the vendors up and, all that. It's nuts. So, but she started and she was great. She's no longer with us, but she was great. And she, for needing what I needed done at the time, she was perfect. And she helped us get in a lot of retailers, established relationships with retailers. And then fast forward just a couple months to June of 2016, we had added so many more SKUs, so many more cities. We're probably selling about 75, 80 cities across the country that we had product for. And so
Dude,
that's 75, 80 cities, but that was probably about 200 different SKUs. A SKU being like a Birmingham Navy is a SKU, a Birmingham Red is a completely different SKU. So 75, 80 cities, probably about 200 SKUs, and so inventory was a damn mess. Couldn't keep the inventory right, which pissed my bookkeeper off, which pissed me off because she would ask me a lot of questions that I didn't have answers to. So I hired a person on June 6th of 2016 as a summer job, and their only job was to keep up with inventory, count inventory, manage it, and then end of the summer, that was going to be it. Well, this person's name is Maddie Perry, who graduated from Alabama, started working with us at Aviate, and she did a phenomenal job organizing our products. And this was when we still shipped stuff out of here, organizing our products in-house so we could ship. And then less than a month went by, and I had some other challenges I was dealing with my old supplier in Nashville and people I worked with up there. And so I kind of told Maddie, I was like, Maddie, this position is going to turn from inventory to our in-house creative director.
Nice. And was she in that field?
Yeah, she was actually, thankfully, turns out.
Nice.
Run into some issues in Nashville, and she'd been doing a great job, and I liked her, and my old employee really liked her, and Jordan really liked her, and so she's been a perfect fit, and she's great, and she's still with us, and she's kind of my right hand person, so to speak. That same week, actually, literally, I think it was the day after, June 7th of 2016, Randall Porter reached out to me. I had met him through my wife at an event earlier that year, and he reached out to me asking if I was hiring. And at that point in time, I was in the middle of planning Aviate's 1-year anniversary party, and I was doing all that stuff by myself, and it was a little bit overwhelming because I'd never really done anything like that. I'd rented out a bar and music venue, hired a DJ, hired a band, paid for the alcohol, I had food trucks come in. I mean, I threw a hell of a party, I would say so myself. And Randall called me asking if I had any openings. I was like, you know what? I don't know if I have any openings, but I know I need help on this project. Will you help me plan my 1-year party for Aviate? That's when he started, and he is really, which this goes with any position in a startup company, but he really has evolved his position into kind of started out as just events and all that kind of thing. But, now it's events and public relations and really getting out into these communities and cities all across the country, getting our name out there, getting our story out there, getting us in magazines, newspapers, blogs, finding people to, trading out with all these Instagram influencers and social influencers all across the country. I mean, that's really how we gain traction in the beginning, and even more now. You reach out to these Instagram influencers and social media influencers and bloggers, and you give them product to give you a shout out. The amount of followers you pick up is
their followers are so loyal, man, that it's like, oh, she's wearing that, I'm all over it. And plus, you guys' Instagram account looks great, and so it's a natural, easy click to follow.
Yeah, and along those lines, our Instagram, when I took over the company 2 years ago, I was not doing the social media, but obviously when I took it over, I was doing the social media, and I was like, how can I change this up and change what we have been doing? And I was like, I have no idea yet, but I know for now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to repost people's pictures they submit to us with wearing an Aviate hat.
Nice.
Well, that's what we still do.
Yeah, I was going to say, simplicity, though. Stick with what works, man. Too many times people try new things when something was working so excellent in the first place. It's like...
Yeah, and what I asked myself is I was like, if I'm a customer, what would make me want to follow Aviate or any brand for that matter? And I was like, well, your unposed customer-driven content and pictures, being very... The stuff we post being user-generated, customer-generated content, which allows us to be more personable to our customers, I feel like. And so that was a huge deal. And Instagram's a big catalyst to what we do. And for the record, we don't buy followers, and we don't do any of that kind of thing. So it's all organic. It's all been grassroots, growing that side of things, and has been a huge asset to our business, because that's how we picked up a significant amount of our retailers too, is through Instagram.
And I want to speak to that really quickly because, just to show the level of, one, how cool your product is, and two, you getting out there. Several weeks ago in Birmingham, earlier this summer, right, we had Sloss Tech, which is, for those of you out there who don't know what Sloss Tech is, it's a tech convention and expo here that's downtown in Birmingham. Casey Neistat spoke at it, right? If people don't know Casey Neistat, you can look on YouTube, and he's got like 7.8 million followers or something, just absolute bananas. But one of his more recent videos, he had a LaGuardia hat on that was from you guys, and y'all posted that on your Instagram, and that's phenomenal. That's exactly the product placement that you want, and you didn't pay for that. He just respects you as a company. He likes your product and likes your story, right? I mean, that's humongous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had a lot of luck in that. I guess that arena, I'll call it. I know there's lots of A-list celebrities that, I guess he's a celebrity, but lots of A-list celebrities that have reached out to us wanting our product, and we gave it to them, and so that's kind of nuts in and of itself. But currently, I mean, we're in where we are. I've told you where we started and where we came from, and where we've been, and where we are now is, we're in about 500 retailers.
Wow.
All across the country, from Honolulu to New York and Seattle to Key West. We're in Toronto, we're in Bermuda, and then we're in the Caribbean as well, which we got some things in the works where we're really going to be breaking out in the Caribbean big time by probably end of the year. We got some stuff in the works, and so we're really excited about that. But we literally grow every day. We a team of 5, we do what we can on trying to grow the business and reach out to retailers. But, thankfully, very grateful the customer loyalty that we have. And, but people are still reaching out to us, stores wanting to carry us, which is a huge asset for us.
That's awesome.
Even just from a time perspective, if nothing else.
We see this over and over where there's always a point, it seems like failure is coming, or that point where you got to make a decision if you're going to give up or keep going. And I know one of the things that we had talked about previously is how you had taken this original idea to some airports, and they weren't necessarily agreeing with your idea or thinking it was going to work. So tell us a little bit about that and how you kind of pushed through that to get to where you are now.
I mean, in the beginning, that was kind of the end game was, or not the end game, but where we'd be making a lot of our money was getting in airport stores. You've got Hudson News, which is, the huge player. Another one being Paradise Company, which is based out of Atlanta. It's family owned, but they got I think it's 600 or 700 airport stores in North America. We drove over to Atlanta, met with the hat and headgear buyer at Paradise, and showed her what we had and gave her our price point and all that kind of thing. And she was like, she goes, 1, this is too expensive. You need to get your price down, which I said no. And 2, she said, she goes, you have 10 seconds to catch somebody's attention when they walk into an airport store, and your product is not attention grabbing enough for people to gravitate towards it once they enter our store. And so I said, fair enough. And I almost said a couple things I shouldn't have said, but and then so fast forward a few months, I got in touch with the buyer at Hudson News, and I really thought they were going to buy, sent them lookbooks, all kinds of samples. And then finally, end of the day, they basically wanted me to pay them for them to carry my stuff. Ridiculous. And I was like, you know what, this isn't worth my time, and y'all, basically can't sit here and bully me around like this. So, we'll see ya. But funny, since I met you guys a couple months ago, we were at Market in Atlanta, and this was about 3 weeks ago, and the buyer, the hat headgear buyer for Paradise, showed up and said she wanted to start carrying our stuff. So we're in the process of working all that out right now with Paradise Company, and so we'll finally be in airport stores. Hopefully, all 600 or 700 of them. But
Dude, that fires me up. It's like, you know what?
awesome.
I don't need you first. I'm going to let me do the talking, and then you can come speak to me after that. Right? Like, we have a guy actually that we work with who is one of the co-founders and the kind of the brainchild of podcast websites, which is an awesome hosting service and WordPress drop and drag plugin. Super great tool. He's over in England, and he had somebody in the early days that he reached out to and was like, hey, man, I'd love to have you on our show to talk a little bit about your service. You know, it's going to be 30 minutes of your time. And the guy that he'd reached out to said, you know, that's something I usually charge for. And Mark was like, to hell with that. I'm not paying you to be on the show. I want this for the greater good of the people, right? Like, and sure enough, about a year and a half later, that guy comes knocking on Mark's door and is like, "Hey, you know, yeah, I think I'm ready to be on your show now. Maybe talk about this." And Mark's like, "You know what? I don't think I have the time, to be perfectly honest with you." We've moved on from that. So that's exactly it, man. You just got to do the talking. You can't sit there. You got to be a team player and get in the game and do it, man. And they'll come to you once you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love that story. So hey, real quick, Ben, if you had anything, and I always ask entrepreneurs that are on our show this question, if you've got one like pivotal piece of advice for that Millennovator that's out there who maybe was in your shoes when you had samples, right? And they took off. You were selling them for $65 each, and you sold what, 100 of them?
Mm-hmm. Something like that. Yeah.
What's your advice for that person? Like, what's their next step?
My piece of advice I always say is you can't be, and this is a little cliche as well, but you cannot be afraid of anything, not just failure, but you can't be afraid of anything. You can't worry about if I make this decision and this is going to happen. Point being is what I did is when we first started out, I had no idea if this was going to work. I felt really good about it, though. But I had no idea if this was going to work. And we ordered all these hats, had no financing, had what little money I had in the bank from my previous job. I literally just threw everything against the wall to see what would stick. I ordered thousands of units. I did, I mentioned my first invoice was $10,000. After that, I never looked at another invoice. I never looked to see how much I was. Whenever I'd create an order and send it to my manufacturer, I would never look to see how much the invoice was going to cost me. I just did it because I knew for the most part, 50% of that order would sell. You can't be afraid to fail. You can't be afraid not to produce. Go big or go home. Like there's no
easing into it.
There's no easing into it. You're right. I'm not a very patient person.
You and me both, brother.
I'm not going to ease myself into it and be like, well, I'm going to try this and see if this works. No, I'm going to do the whole damn thing at once. I'm going to see what's going to work, what doesn't work. I'll reevaluate and take away and add to where I need to. And so all that to say, you can't be afraid of failure. You can't be afraid of what people are going to think about you, your business, or what you do or believe or stand for. You just got to do you and be you. So
that's awesome, man. Well, I know, Ben, I was at the beach a few weeks ago. I guess it was 4th of July, actually, and saw your hats everywhere. So, but for those people who have never seen your hats and all your stuff, where can they find you? What's your website? Just tell us a few places they can find you.
Yeah, our website is shopaviate.com, and you can find everything there. I mean, we've got about 125 to 140 cities, I think, that we produce.
Dude, is that nuts to say right now? Like I kind of sense you being like, whoa, man. Like,
yeah. And so we've got probably 500 or 600 different SKUs, I would think. And, people are always like, hey, do you have this color or that color or the other? And I appreciate people asking, but you can also go to the website yourself and see if you have it. Honestly, we've got so much product, I can't tell you if we have it in stock or if we don't, or if we even have it or not. So you can find us there. I mean, we're in a ton of retailers here in Birmingham and all throughout the Southeast predominantly. And if you don't know where else you can find us, shoot us an email. Go to our website. Me and my staff are on there. You can get our email addresses and contact us. And we like to keep everything very personable. Like I said earlier, I feel like people can kind of have a relationship with us, and that's how we like to keep it. So.
Yeah, that's great, man.
That's what it's all built on, man. And you know what? I'm actually headed up to Charlotte in late September. My niece is turning 3, and she has a very large head. I love her to death. But she'll be getting a CLT adult hat, no doubt, my friend.
Awesome.
So, Ben, man, thank you so much for being on here and just inspiring these guys.
Yeah,
our audience is listening to you and looking to you to learn and really just our goal is to have people run through a wall, man, after
Yeah.
the show and just get after it, and you're a prime example of that. You charge $65 for a hat when you weren't even a business yet. That shows a lot of how bold and how confident you are, man, and that means a ton. So appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you guys so much.
Now check it out one time, I gotta show the dude. And if you love hip-hop, I'm about to fuck with you.
Now, if listening to Ben tell his founding story about starting that business just from scratch, like super organically, ordering 100 samples at $23, $25 a hat, selling them for $65 a hat.
65.
If that doesn't make you believe in yourself and make you want to start whatever it is that you are side hustling, you need to find something new to do.
Seriously. $65 is a lot for a hat.
I'm not paying $65 for a hat.
But
I am in Alabama. I don't wear cowboy hats. People do wear cowboy hats. People pay a lot of money for a cowboy hat, but I've never seen anyone pay $65 for just a cap, right?
Oh, no.
But Ben knew his product was superior and it was freaking rock and roll.
Yeah,
and people bought it.
That's the big thing is he had faith in what he was doing. I mean, obviously, if you're paying $23, $25 just to get the hat made, then you know you're going to have to sell it for a lot more to make a profit on it, a decent profit. But $65, I mean, he had the faith, and his faith, he went out there and rocked it, and he made his money and sold all those hats for $65 a piece. And really, it just proves the point that we're trying to make here is just you have to get out there and take the leap. It doesn't always look the same for everybody. It doesn't have to be as much or as little as another person, but you just have to eventually decide, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out here and make it happen.
Well, and listen, I think another thing that rings to be true, especially after listening to Ben and after listening to great millennial entrepreneur after great millennial entrepreneur, the fact of the matter is, you don't have it all figured out when you start this thing.
Oh, definitely
You
not.
do not know what position is going to form into what when you hire someone. You do not understand exactly what the costs are going to bring to the table. You do not exactly understand where you're going to be housing all your product or your team. Where's your office going to be? Are you going to have that? You may not have all of the technologies, but really and truly, Jonathan, all that is just an excuse. All of that is you saying, I can't do it right now. I've got to figure this and that and this out first. Entrepreneurship is not that way.
No, I mean, if we're just going to be perfectly transparent, y'all should see how Will and I started. Some of the places where we've even recorded podcasts.
Oh, yeah, it was a joke. Look, there's absolutely nothing wrong with beginning, and I don't want to say fake it until you make it, because your service has got to be better than everyone else on this market. So you are not going to be faking anything. If you're faking your way through entrepreneurship, you're going to get caught. Believe me. But if you have built a great superior product or service, trust me when I say everything else doesn't have to be ready and perfectly prepared and polished and sharpened. It gets better and better and better every single time you practice it.
And that's what I mentioned earlier about Ben adding to his team. Obviously, there comes to a point where you can't do everything, number one. And number two, you're not good at doing everything. So once you get to be successful enough and you realize you want to take that next step, maybe that's when you add a team member. And I think that's one thing that Ben has done tremendously well is added team members when he needed them. But not only that, adding the right team members and filling roles for them that they could thrive in.
Yeah, as he mentioned, he doesn't like throwing events. He loves parties, but he doesn't like planning a party. Randall kills that. I know Randall personally here in Birmingham, Alabama. He worked for a PR firm before joining Aviate full time. He dominates that, and he is the exact person that Ben needed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So guys, just remember that because you're starting out does not mean that you can't just get started.
Get after.
Don't get everything set up together perfectly congruent to where everything is this beautiful business plan and it's all going to work according to plan, because guess what? It's not going to work according to plan. Ben Lancaster with Aviate did not plan a failure around his distribution model. It happened. He found a new way around it. There's nothing wrong with that. That's entrepreneurship at its finest. Doors are going to close down every single hallway you go down. Get used to it.
I mean, you really just have to look at it like, for all of you out there who have kids, which I have one, Will doesn't have any yet, but there's never a perfect time to have a baby.
Oh, dude, there's never a perfect time to get engaged. There's never a perfect time to
do
get
a lot of
married.
things. So you
There's
just have to think of this the same way.
Get
There's
it?
never a perfect time.
Exactly. So guys, get out there and get after it. We hope that this episode of the Millennovator podcast has inspired you to not be perfect, but to just try. dip your toe in that water and get out there and just hustle into it. Get after it. If you really enjoyed and loved this episode, please leave us a review in iTunes. We love your reviews. We get your feedback. We absolutely adore it. If you have an idea for the show, if you have a person you want on the show, we will work our butts off to get that guy or gal on an episode.
For sure.
Send us an email at millennovator@gmail.com. That forwards to all of our email addresses. We will get that email. We will respond to that email, and we will work our butts off to get that entrepreneur on this show. Jonathan, any final remarks, man?
Just get out there and get after it. Make it happen. There's never a perfect time except for right now.
So guys, get out there, stand up, stand out. We'll see you next episode.
Peace.
Now check it out one time, I gotta show it to you. And if you love hip-hop, I'm about to fuck with you.
Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to call your mother and tell that woman that you love her. And if you love the show almost as much, subscribe to us on iTunes and leave us a sweet review. We're definitely not ashamed to blush. Now, go forward and implement what you learned from today's episode into your business. We cannot wait to personally hear your story of success and replicate it 1,000 times over.
Give me the mic,